Good afternoon. Welcome to GDIC's webinar for the PACTS III. My name is Cal, and I'm your artificial intelligence host today. With me is Ab Van, VP for Capture at GDIC and a subject matter expert on self-scoring proposals. Please note that this webinar will take approximately 1 hour. Before starting, there are a few housekeeping notes I would like to mention. First, this webinar is being recorded and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Second, we will hold a Q&A session at the end. You can send your questions during the webinar by the chat system to the right of your window and Ab will address them at the end. Third, you can download this presentation by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel on your window. We highly recommend you download the slide deck so that you can always refer back to it. So let's see what this webinar covers. We will first have a quick glimpse on our self-scoring capabilities. Then we will look at how the PACTS program has performed so far during these past few years. We will then start with the general details of PACTS III and what's new, and then discuss the proposal structure. Next, we will have a detailed discussion of the scoring system and then the pricing requirement. We will also touch on how the source selection process works. Partnering is an important issue in PACTS III, and Ab will discuss that in detail. Finally, before going into the Q&A session, Ab will discuss the importance of compliance and will provide some experience sharing there. As a whole, the message we want to convey to you in this webinar is that the workload for preparing your proposal is quite high and you should start as soon as possible. Secondly, you should note that there are many perks in these self-scoring proposals and hence a rigorous compliance procedure should be in place, as Ab will explain. So, with that, I will now hand over the control to Ab to start the webinar. Ab, please.
Hello everyone. Thank you for participating in our webinar. Let's start with a glimpse of GDIC's capabilities towards self-scoring proposals, as PACTS III is also a self-scoring proposal. Many of you have just finished Oasis Plus, so you're probably familiar with these types of proposals. But before we start, I did want to make sure that everybody understands that the requirements for Oasis Plus and PACTS III are quite different. So don't be misled by what Oasis Plus, which came from GSA, was requiring. The DHS PACTS III has quite a different types of requirements, as I will show you. So let's move forward from here. Okay, so I won't go into much detail because we have a lot to cover and have just 1 hour. So if you download these slides, you can go into detail about our capabilities. I just wanted to say that we've done a lot of self-scoring proposals. To the left of this slide, you can see, in addition to Oasis Plus, which I will explain, we've done Oasis, Astro, Alliant 2, HCATS, VETS 2. Overall, 120 successful proposals. In that, we've received the success news from our clients. But also, we just came out of Oasis Plus. We did 105 projects, 38 large clients, and 77 small business clients that we prepared proposals for. So we have quite a lot of experience. We boast being #1 company on self-scoring due to the large amount of successful proposals that we have prepared. So moving forward, you can see that we have worked with almost all agencies, from the military to the civilian agencies in the federal government. There's not room, otherwise we would put in the names of all these different agencies. And in terms of the self-scoring experience, as I mentioned, 105 proposals prepared for Oasis Plus. All of them had scores above the acceptable range, which means that if nothing happens as far as the protests and everything like that, all of them will get awarded. 41 wins on Oasis Small Business, the previous one, and 12 on the unrestricted. 29 wins on Astro, 18 on Astro Small Business, and 18 on the OTSB, Emerging and Large Business. 8 wins on HCATS, small, and 1 on the unrestricted, and 6 wins on Alliant 2 unrestricted. An average win rate of 96%. In fact, it's actually higher on our self-scoring proposals, because right from the beginning, it's the nature of these types of proposals. You know whether you're going to win or not. So essentially, it's 100% most of the time. Self-scoring training for PTACs, APMP chapters, and other clients we've helped. And we've done projects for many types of companies, from very small companies all the way to some of the largest defense contractors. We've helped maximize your score, and doing compliance and doing full proposal management. So moving forward, I want to go, before going into PACTS III, I want to just touch on how PACTS II is faring, and what is this PACTS II or PACTS program, how it's performing in these past years. So initially, PACTS II was just for STVOSB companies, not like the PACTS III, which has opened up. So it was only for STVOSB companies, $1.5 billion ceiling value. The expected orders at the time it came out was 196. It went way over that. Number of awards, 30. It had only 2 categories, functional categories as they call them, 1 and 2, and we'll see that in PACTS III. They've expanded that into a 3rd functional category. It was awarded in 2016 with a 5-year base, and then multiple times it was extended, including March 2022. Now, if you look at the contract values, I have the numbers for 2005 till 2019 from PACTS I and PACTS II. You can see that the total is way above $1 billion. With the blue ones are the different departments within DHS, so CBP, FEMA, ICE, OPO, TSA, and USCG. It shows the amount of contract value that each have spent, obligated, and these are in $1 million. And if you look at the task orders, we can see again that, for example, OPO had the largest number of task orders during these years. Okay, moving forward, we can also see how the split between the contract values between the 2 functional categories were. So essentially a 50-50 in terms of the award value, but the total, the task order awards, about 60% were for FC1, for functional category 1, and about 40% for functional category 2. So that's essentially a bird's eye view of how the PACTS program has been performing. It has been a successful one, and DHS is the reason they've spent a lot on preparing PACTS III and actually expanding it. Shows that the PACTS program is a successful program within DHS, and it's something to look after by you. It's a good opportunity. And I'm going to show you the details and the other aspects of how you can actually compete in that. There have been some developments I'll go into that require you to do a go, no-go again. So I will show that you in a minute, but let's go into the general details of PACTS III now. So you can see that it's now expanded to 4 different set-asides, not only STVOSB, but also 8A, hub zones, and WOSBs, WOSBs. So 4 different tracks. Note that total small businesses cannot participate. Only those 4 set-asides, 8A, hub zone, STVOSB, and women-owned small business. The estimated value has gone up from 1.5 for PACTS II to all the way to $8.4 billion for PACTS III. The period of performance, it has a 1 3-year base period, and then 3 2-year options and one last 1-year option for a total of 10 years. Expected orders, something around 2,000, they've said in the latest RFP across the 10-year period. We'll have to see how it goes, because at times they've said it can be much less, but they've also mentioned this number for it's been split between different functional categories. We'll have to see how it works. But considering that estimated value of 8.4 billion, for sure they're going to have more task orders than the previous PACTS II, with perhaps larger values. Number of awards is now 96. It used to be, I think, 60 the previous drafts. It's now 96, and I'll explain how that works. The third draft RFP was issued on October 27th. Last Friday was apparently the due date for the full RFP, but it has not come out yet. It seems that they're going to give us a 75-day preparation period. If it had come out, say, last Friday, they had mentioned end of January for the due date of proposals. We'll have to see. Award date is August 2024. Okay, so moving forward, let's look at what these functional categories are. Functional category 1 is administrative management and general management consulting services. Functional category 2, administrative and operation services, and these were the same as in PACTS II. And then we have functional category 3, which is engineering services. Now, let's look at the details of these. The functional category 1 has the NAICS code of 541611 and size standard of $24.5 million. So you must be smaller than that, under that 541611, to be able to participate. Even though you might be, one of those 4 different set-aside categories, you still must be smaller than $24.5 million to be able to participate in this opportunity, 541611 for FC1. And then you can see that PSC codes, and we'll come back to these PSC codes and the NAICS code, because these are the requirements for the contracts that you must provide to get points, and I'll get to that. But so you can always refer back to this page, to this slide, for the PSCs that you can claim. Moving forward to FC2, it's the Administrative and Operations Services 561110 with the size standard of 12.5. So if you want to go after FC2, you must be smaller, or the average 5-year value of your company's company size must be smaller than 12.5 under 561110. And then the PSCs are listed here. Moving forward to FC3 is 541330, and the size standard is 24.5 million. Note that this does not have the exceptions. So because 541330 has 4 exceptions, this does not cover those 4 exceptions. Just the 541330 plus the PSC codes that are listed. Okay, and now how they're going to award, we'll get to this again, but under each FC, so functional category, there are going to be 4 different set-asides, and under each set-aside, they're going to provide 8 awards. Now, they might change this, but this is the latest number. So overall, you'll see that it adds up to 96. 32 for each functional category, for overall 96 for all 3 functional categories. So this is how they're going to award this contract. Now let's see what's new. I'm going to go into details of all the the scoring, the pricing, and everything else. But I just wanted to have a very short and concise explanation of what has changed for those of you who have participated in our webinars before, or for those who want to know, there have been some changes in the latest draft RFP, plus they issued a Q&A of 870 or 73 Q&As. We've gone through all of that. So this webinar covers the entire Q&A and everything that was mentioned in that as well. So these are the most important things that have changed. First of all, the lowest value for contracts that you can now provide to get points for, and I'll go into detail on that later on, is now $1 million. It used to be $50,000, so they've actually, gotten it to $1 million, saying that the reason is that since they need to check the CPARs for all contracts, the past performance, you're not supposed to provide any past performance. They're going to check it themselves for federal contracts, but federal contracts do not have CPARs if they're less than $1 million. That's the reasoning, but there are other reasons involved. I think the second point will mention that too. The point system has changed for the different levels of contract amount. Previously, it was leaning towards allowing small businesses to actually win on this. Now they have changed and leveled out the pointing for the different contract amounts, meaning that they are not leaning towards the small businesses anymore. And I think this goes hand in hand with that $1 million. Unfortunately, when this PACTS III came out, everybody thought that DHS was going after small businesses, helping them. I'm sorry to say that with the third draft RFP, it seems that they've dropped that. It's essentially geared towards medium to large small businesses, not very large that are on the verge of turning into large businesses, so to say, non-small business, but it's now it's gone from small businesses to medium-sized small businesses. So that's the change, in fact, and I'll go into detail of how those point systems work. Now they have also introduced a new system of how they're going to award. Remember, I said that 8 awards under each set aside. Now those 8 awards are themselves split into 4 groups based on whether you're for example, going solo as a prime contractor, or if you're going, for example, if you're going solo, or if it's a JV, or if it's a MPJV, mentor protege JV, or it's a prime sub. Each of those, there are 4 categories. So solo, prime contractor. Second one is JVs. Third one is MPJVs, and fourth one is prime sub. If you're doing that, you are going to get only, they are going to award only 2 companies under each of those categories. So you will not be, in terms of chances, you're not competing for 8 places. You're competing for 2 places. So that makes it harder. So that's something that I said you have to do a assessment, a go, no go. That's one of the reasons. Now, partnering is now allowed. So because in the draft RFP number 2, the wording showed that you could not actually have prime sub relationships and use the subs contracts, but now they have allowed it. However, they have curbed how many contracts you can bring to the table from your partners. So essentially, if you're a prime sub relationship, 40% of the contracts must come from you as the prime. If you have a mentor protege relationship, 40% of the contracts must come from the protege, and then the rest must come from the mentor. So that's the split. They've also changed the scoring for secret and top secret. They used to have the same value. Now they have changed that. Not very large difference, but just to note. And finally, the adequate accounting system now has a higher value point. So I'll show you sometimes, for example, for category 2, it counts like 5 contracts. So if you have an adequate accounting system, it's worth having 5 contracts to the table. So overall, These changes do require a reassessment and a new go, no go, whether you want to actually proceed or not. I wanted to mention this to everyone. Okay, so let's move forward. Let's start with the proposal structure. Essentially, there are 4 volumes, so to say. There's the executive summary with unlimited page. They have mentioned what you're supposed to provide in it. You don't get any points on it. They're not going to, you know, remove you from the race if your executive summary is very short or, you know, not written well. It's the usual. Then the main 2 factors. Factor 1 is technical, includes the self-scoring sheets, the verification for past performance and experience, the accounting system verification, and facility clearance verification. Then you have factor 2 price, which has 2 sections: minimum quantity or pack pricing and labor category pricing. I'll go into all of these. And then the contract documentation, like the SF 4049 and things like that you have to sign, and or section Ks, the usual administrative documents. So essentially, factor 1 and factor 2 are the most important parts of this proposal that you need to prepare, and we'll go into detail of those. But I do want to mention something as written there, important. You must submit one and only one proposal for each FC functional category, even though you might be going after multiple set-asides. So if your company has, say, is a small business, women-owned small business, is a SDV OSB, and is an 8A, fine. You still submit one proposal, but you mentioned that you have those 3 standings, and that's enough. So you are not supposed to provide a different proposal for each of those set-asides. One proposal per FC, functional category. Okay, having said that, let's now start on the main thing, which is the scoring system. Let's go into the scoring system and see how it works. So there are 3 main scoring factors: experience, the adequate accounting system, and the facility clearance. You get points for each of these 3. And the next slide shows how the system works. So these have all changed. These are not the same as the previous RFP, the draft RFP number 2. They have changed in draft RFP number 3, and probably will remain the same when the full RFP comes out. So you'll see that it starts from 1 million. So it has to be above or equal to 1 million. To 1.5 million. For example, for FC1 you get 116 points, for FC2 you get 17 points, and for FC3 you get 43 points if you have a contract that is within that range, 1 million to 1.5 million. So first of all, some questions I will answer ahead of the time. You might say, why are they different for the different FCs? It doesn't matter, because they're not going to compare FC1 with FC2. All the companies under FC2 are going to be compared against each other. So under FC2, if you get a 17, your competitor will get a 17 or an 11 or something like that. So they're not going to get 116 or something like that. So this is a system they have come up with. Why, I don't know, to be honest. But it doesn't matter that the 3 different functional categories have different types of scoring, because they're not going to be compared against each other. But you should consider how it works under one category. So let's look at FC1. You see that there are 5 different types in terms of experience. Contracts that are between 1 million and 1.5 million, contracts that are between 1.5 to 2.5, and then 2.5 to 4 million, 4 million to 10 million, and anything above 10 million. And you can see those numbers that you can get for each contract. So if you have 10 contracts that are between 1 and 1.5 million, it's 116 times 10. You get 1,160 points for them. So that's how it works. I will explain what those red circles are, ovals. But for the accounting system, you'll see that it's 273 points if you have an adequate accounting system, and I'll explain what an adequate accounting system is. But if you can prove that you do have an adequate accounting system, you get 273 points. Under FC2, you get 60. Under FC3, you get 97. Again, don't compare these together. And then finally, facility clearance. If you have an FCL of secret FCL, you get 15 points under FC1. If you have top secret, you get 27 points. Remember that top secret does not include secret, so it's not 27 plus 15, just 27. Now, one thing to consider is that accounting system I mentioned. For example, look at under FC1, 273 is nearly twice most of those above. So it works like as if you had two contracts. You get the points of two contracts. But in FC2, it's really like 5 contracts. So say you had 5 contracts that were between 1.5 million and 2.5 million. It's 11 points each. That would give you 55 points. If you have an adequate accounting system, you get 60 points. So it's more than 5 contracts there. For FC3, it's again approximately maybe a little bit less than 2 contracts. So that's another point to consider. So in FC2, it's really important to have an accounting system. It will give you, like 5 contracts. It's really a good thing to look at. Now, why have I put in those ovals or circles around those points? Those are the best in terms of the points. So, and I'm going to show you a few examples, but you can see that, for example, under FC1, contracts that are between 1.5 million and 2.5 million get 138 points, and contracts between 2.5 million and 4 million get 141 points. So these get the best score. So if you can get contracts in those ranges, those are the highest points that you can get per contract. Under FC2, it's either contracts between 1 to 1.5 million or large contracts, anything above 10 million, and you get 17 points. And then under FC3, you can see that contracts between 4 million and 10 million, 68 points. That's the main jewel of FC3. If you can get contracts in that range, you'll get 68 points, way 22 points above the others at least. So that's to consider. Now let's look at some of the examples how two companies might fare against each other. Let's start with sorry, I went backwards. Let's go here. Before I give you examples, let me also explain what the requirements for these contracts are. So the contracts that you bring to the table, these can be federal prime contracts. They can be federal first-tier subcontracts. So you actually were a subcontractor to a prime federal contractor, or they can be commercial contracts. So essentially, you work with Apple, you work with a commercial company, and the federal government considers state and local governments as commercial usually. So that you can use those contracts if you have them as well. So any of these can be used, and there's no difference. You don't get any extra points if all your contracts are federal or if all your contracts are commercial. No difference. Now, in terms of timing, this requirement is very important. The performance has occurred. The contract that you bring to the table must have a performance that has occurred within the last 730 days. That means calendar days, 2 years, since the issuance of the RFP. So say, for example, today is the 21st. If 21st of November, if DHS drops the RFP today, you have to go back 730 days or 2 years approximately, and any contract that was ongoing during this time can be used. There are some other requirements, but so you can't use contracts that were finished before these 2 years. So only the contracts that you got after, say, 2 years from here, that would be to the 21. So approximately 21st of November 2021. If you got any contracts after that date, you can use them. But any contracts that were finished before that date, you cannot use. Now, you might have contracts that were older but were ongoing after that date. That's fine. So the completion is important. The completion must be within the last 2 years. Also, they must have at least 6 months of consecutive performance. So if you had a contract for 4 months only, you can't use that. It has to have at least 6 months of performance, and it has to be consecutive. And then those 6 months, at least 1 day of it must be within these 2 years. So these two requirements are hand in hand, going hand in hand. You might be using ongoing projects. That's fine. So ongoing projects that have been going on, say you got them a year ago and it's going ongoing, maybe finishing in 2-3 years, that's fine. You can use those as well. Now, in terms of relevance, both, and this is important, both the NAICS code and the PSC codes that I showed you on those slides for FD functional categories must be on the contract. So a contract that does have the correct NAICS code but doesn't have the correct PSC code cannot be used. Now, when I say cannot be used, there is an exception I'll explain, but that's the point. Both the NAICS code and the PSC code. So you might have a question, well, I'm going to use a contract that I got from state government. They don't use NAICS code or PSC codes. That's fine. You can have a document comes with the RFP called project verification form. You send it to your customer, whether it's a commercial customer, whether you were a subcontractor to a federal prime contract, you send it to that prime, and if they sign off on that project verification form with regards to the NAICS and PSC and relevance, that's fine. Then you can use that contract. So, but you have to ensure that both the NAICS code and the PSC code correspond. Now, if you have a contract, federal contract that does have, in terms of the context, it's really irrelevant, but the NAICS code is wrong or the PSC is wrong, you still can get that project verification form signed by the contracting officer, and it will be accepted. Now, another thing, and this is different from Oasis Plus, friends from Oasis Plus, this is an and, NAICS code and PSC code. Now, in terms of the value, again, a difference between Oasis looked at the total value. Here, this is the obligated amount. So those values we saw, for example, 1.5 to 2.5 or above 10 million, all of those that we saw in the previous slide, they must be obligated amounts that have been paid to you, in effect. So if it's a completed contract, what was obligated, that's the total amount. If it's an ongoing contract, then again, the obligated amount, this includes the base year plus all the exercised option years, not the non-exercised ones. You cannot use those. So any exercised option years you can use because they are essentially obligated. And then in terms of past performance, the project must have a satisfactory or above rating on all CPARs or past performance ratings. So the government is going to check the CPARs themselves, but for non-federal contracts, again, that project verification form does have a section with regards to the customer signing off on your past performance with regards to this rating. Now, I did mention there are 4 types of offers that you can provide, as I mentioned, and I've listed them out here again. So prime contractor, solo, joint venture, SPA mentor protege arrangement, or MPJV as they call it, and then teaming arrangements, prime sub relationships. These 4 can provide experienced projects. So for example, if you have a teaming arrangement, prime sub relationship, your primes can actually bring it to the table, the projects that they have performed with that 40% limit that I mentioned. So 60% can come from your subs, but 40% must come from you as the prime. But these are the 4 different types of companies or offerers that can provide these experiences. Okay, now let's look at some of examples. So under FC1, functional category 1, company A and company B, say company A has 10 contracts between 4 million and 10 million, and these are obligated, so everything is corrected within the last 2 years. And then 10 contracts above 10 million. So this contract this company is a major company, large company, in fact, large small business, I should say, and it has 20 contracts. It has an accounting system, and it has a top secret facility clearance. The total, if you calculate it, comes to 1,660. Now, company B has only 10 contracts, and those contracts are between 1.5 and 2.5. So it's not as large as company A, and it has only 10 contracts, not 20 contracts. But because 1.5 to 2.5 has that higher value unit point, which is 138, the total overall, if we have equal, accounting system same and top secret same, is 1,680, 20 points more than company A. So this company will be selected instead of company A, assuming that everything else, works out properly, the administrative documents and all that. So in terms of the score, company B will get more points, even though it has 10 contracts only, whereas company A has 20 contracts. So all the contracts are much larger than company B's. So you see how this has been arranged to actually go for, at least under functional category 1, to go for medium-sized businesses and make them win this. Let's look at another example. Okay, this is under FC2, functional category 2. So company A has 20 contracts between 4 to 10 million, and it gets 220 points for that. And then it has an accounting system, and it has a top secret facility clearance. Add them up, you get 289 points. Now, company B doesn't have 20 contracts. It has only 14 contracts, and the contracts are between $1 and $1.5 million. And it does have an accounting system, but it doesn't have any facility clearance, secret or top secret, none of them. It still gets more points, 298, because the contracts between 1 million and 1.5 million will get it more points. So you can see that for FC2 facility clearance, functional category 2, small businesses, smaller businesses in the medium range between 1 million to 1.5 million, and also very large businesses, that is 10 million and above, they get 17 points. So this is geared towards them more than the middle section. So that's something to consider. And also do remember that having an accounting system works like having 5 contracts here. So that's something to actually make sure that you do have. And I'll explain that in a minute. Let's look at another example here. For example, that accounting system works here. So this, you have 2 companies. They are the same range, 4 million to 10 million. Company A has 20 contracts. Company B has 15 contracts. Okay, so company B gets 165 points, but company A gets 220 points. But company A doesn't have an accounting system. Company B does have an accounting system, 60 points. It works like 5 contracts. And assuming that, for example, both of them have secret facility clearance, you'll see that company A has 228 and company B has 233. So again, company B, even though it has less contracts in the same range as company A, but does have the adequate accounting system, will win. So these are important facts to consider per functional category, because they're different for each functional category. And finally, functional category C is geared towards the 4 million to 10 million. So say you have a contract, company A, that has 30 contracts, but they're all in the smaller range of 1 million to 4 million all the way. And then you have one company, company B has 4 million to 10 million, 20 contracts. Still gets more points. So one gets 1,465, the other gets 1,475. So company B wins, even though it has 20 contracts. The first one has 30 contracts. So under FC3, it's geared towards companies between the range of 4 million to 10 million. If you have more contracts there, you are the winner in that category. So these were the different scoring examples that I had. Let's also look at pricing too and see how that works in this opportunity. So there are two sub-factors. Minimum quantity price must be 250 or less. So I mean, it's easy. Just don't put something like above 250. Just put in something less than 250. That's all you have to do. That's the minimum quantity price. The most important part is that sub-factor 2, which is the labor category pricing, the LCAT pricing. Now, they're supposed to be fair and reasonable, and I'll explain how that works. You must provide full burdened rates for all LCATs, and then they have divided the LCATs under contractor side as well as government side in case there's a difference. Sometimes the GNA or other factors are different for contractor side work compared to government site work for each, and these are different for each functional category. So you have to fill out this attachment 3. There are 15 LCATs if you look into attachment 3, there are 15 LCATs for FC1, 10 LCATs for FC2, and 18 LCATs for FC3. You have to provide fully burdened rates for each of these. And then you only enter it once. It will calculate it for all the years that are going to come. It automatically increases each year by 3%, and you're not supposed to change that. So that is fixed. You're not supposed to change that 3% increase. But do note that each year will increase 3% automatically. So all you do is just put in those numbers, the fully burdened rates for those LCATs once in that attachment 3. It calculates everything automatically from there. Now, what number should you put? It's easy. Don't think that this is hard. You have to do a lot of calculations, because we will see this. You're not going to get any points. They're not going to compare you with anybody else. This is a go, no go, or pass, fail sort of thing. Either you pass or you fail this pricing. How do you pass? They want to make sure that the numbers you put in there are not more than what they have calculated. And they have calculated it and listed it in attachment 8. So go look up attachment 8. You'll see that there are numbers for each of those LCATs, for each of those functional categories. You just have to be less than those maximum numbers that they have put in. I'll give you a hint. Just deduct a few cents from those maximum numbers and put it there. That's all, because they're not going to compare your numbers with others. And then this gives you leverage, because at the task order level time, you can always use these numbers and give discounts because they're right near the maximum, so you can always come below that. So this is how you can actually do it. Just look up attachment 8 prices, deduct a few cents from them, and put them in attachment 3. That's it. You're ready to go. If you want to do calculations, the FTE, as far as they are concerned, full-time employee is equivalent to 1,872 hours per year. That's if you're going to do some calculations on that. But essentially, as I said, look up the numbers from attachment 8, deduct a few cents, and then input them in attachment 3. That's all. Okay, now how does the source selection process work? Let's look at that as well. So we did see that there are two factors that they're going to actually look at. Factor 1 is technical, factor 2 price. Factor 2 price is easy. It's a pass-fail, as I mentioned. So they're not going to compare you with others. You just either pass or you fail. So for sub-factor 2.1, just go below $250. Just put in the number less than 250. And sub-factor 2.2 is that form attachment 3. As I said, look up attachment 8, deduct a few cents, and put it in attachment 3, and you're good to go. You get a pass. So let's now concentrate on factor 1, which is technical. There are three things there: the experience factor, the accounting system, and facility clearance. Now, past performance, they're going to check themselves, but you have to make sure that when you pick contracts, if they're federal contracts, make sure that there are contracts that you had satisfactory and above ratings. And if there are commercial contracts or subcontracts that you need to get ratings from your primes, make sure you pick those that you can get a rating of satisfactory or above, because they have to sign off on that. The accounting system and facility clearance, again, we looked at the numbers. So essentially what they're going to do is they're going to look at your score, and then based on that, we'll see what they do on the next slide. So this is the process that they're going to do. First, they're going to rank and group you. So say they have received 200 submissions, 200 proposals. First, they split them between the FCs, the functional categories. So maybe 100 go to this first functional category 1, 50 go to functional category 2, and 50 go to functional category 3. So that's the first grouping and ranking. Then under each functional category, they're going to split them based on the set aside. So maybe some of the proposals are for women-owned only, some of them are for STVOSB, some of them are for 8A. So they split them up under the categories. Then they will split them based on those 4 types of offers that I mentioned. This is new. They split them between, so maybe they have, say, 20 contracts that are women-owned small business and under FC1. They will split them under 4 categories of solo prime contractors, second was JVs, third was MPJVs, and fourth was prime sub. So they split them because they're not going to compare, for example, a JV's score with a solo contractor score. They're not going to compare a prime sub relationship or teaming agreement score with a JV score. So they are not going to compare these. They're going to compare only prime subs against each other, JVs against each other, MPJVs against each other, and prime contractor solos against each other. So that's why they split them. Once they split them, maybe say there are 20 of them, they split them into these 4, and by chance each of them have 5. So you have 4 groups of 5 submissions. Now they're going to rank them. So they look at, because they're going to pick only 2, remember, 2 from each. So they will list them per rank in terms of the score, the self-scoring that each of the companies have done. And they put them in terms of, they rank them per the score that each company has claimed. So one company is 2,000, another is 1,800, another is 1,600, 1,200, and 800, something like that. So they score, and then they pick the top 2. They're not going to look at the other 3, just the top 2 under that, say, for example, prime sub section. They pick that 2, and they move to the second column here on this slide. So this is the first part, grouping and ranking. First from functional categories, then set aside, then type of offer, and then rank them. Once they do that, they pick the top 2, move to identify PQPs. PQPs are preliminary qualifying proposals. So essentially saying that, hey, these are the ones that we want to look at. So they pick those and then move and look at them, make sure that they are correct ones based on the score and everything. And then they move to third column, acceptability review. So based on the, how they are going to accept, and meaning acceptability review is all the essential formatting and form-based requirements of the proposals as mentioned in sections L and M. Once that's done, they move to evaluation process. And in evaluation process, they start the actual content in terms of looking at the price, looking at the scoring, the past performance, the experience, the accounting system, facility clearance, the scores, and everything there. So this is the process. Now, within this process, maybe they're doing the evaluation that they realize that this company's price has a problem and is not compatible. They will drop that company, go back to the first column, grouping and ranking, pick the third one from the top and move it in those columns to make sure. So this is the process that they're going to work through to actually pick the top 2 under each of those categories, making 8 under a set aside and making 32 awards under a full functional category. Now, if you look at this, say under a functional category, each of the functional categories, first you have the set aside, for example, a women-owned small business. They split it between prime contractor and they call it SBTA, small business teaming arrangement. Now, small SBTA itself has three parts: JVs, mentor protege JVs, and prime subs. So the orange ones are the final. This is the final selection. So two companies, two offerers under prime contracts, two offerers under JVs, two offerers under mentor protege, and two offerers under prime sub are selected at the end of the day. Again, remember, they're not going to compare the score of prime contractors, for example, with JVs or JVs with prime subs. If there are, say, 5 submissions for prime contractors, they're going to compare those 5 submissions together, just them. They're not going to compare them with the others. They will rank them based on the score and pick the top 2 and make them go through that process that we discussed. So this is how they're going to actually select. This changes the things. So you see, you're not going to compete against 8 companies. If then you might think that they're going to pick 8 companies under women-owned small business, for example, functional category 1. But in reality, there's only 2 places that you have to compete for. So because depending on whether you're a prime contractor going solo, you're a JV, mentor protege, or prime sub, they're going to only pick 2. So this competition is tougher than previously. That's another quirk in this new system that they have come up with. Okay, now let's discuss partnering, because we did go into partnering more or less. Let's see how that works. Okay, so let's look at first, as I mentioned, there are 4 types of offers: prime contractors and SPTAs, SP teaming arrangements. So joint ventures, mentor protege joint ventures, and prime sub teaming arrangements, or prime sub as we call them. These are the 3 types of, so to say, partnering. Do note that under the prime sub teaming arrangement, all teaming partners must be small under that functional category NAICS code. So if you're going to functional category 1, for example, under that NAICS code, all the partners must be small. So you cannot have a large business in your team, in your prime sub relationship team, in a teaming arrangement. Now, in mentor protege, the mentor can obviously be a large company, but for prime sub relationships, it cannot. So now let's look at some of the points that are more important. First of all, only the prime needs to have that specific set aside that you're targeting. So say you're going for the women-owned small business and you're starting, you want to have a teaming arrangement, prime sub relationship. Only you as the prime have to be women-owned small business. The others, the team members, do not have to be that. They just have to be small. Also note that you cannot mix these 4 types. So if you have a JV or MPJV, you cannot bring in subcontractors. That's the important thing. If you're a JV or an MPJV, you cannot bring in subcontractors like a teaming arrangements and sign teaming arrangements with them. That's not allowed. So either you're a prime sub relationship or you're a JV or MPJV, not a mixture. That's something to consider. For a contract to be considered relevant and be counted, so those experiences, those contracts, it can only be used once in all set-asides. This is unlike Oasis Plus. So no passing around projects to multiple primes. If you use one project for any of your primes, say you're in a team, you cannot use that same project for any other primes. So that's only once. Remember that. In terms of reading the Q&A and understanding what DHS talks about, when they talk about teaming arrangement, they mean something that is in their mindset is different from subcontracting. That's why some of the Q&As are confusing, because people have said, is subcontracting allowed? And they say yes, you can have a large business subcontractor And then another place they say, no, your teaming arrangement cannot have a large business. So teaming arrangement in this DHS PACTS III, teaming arrangement as subcontracting are different. Teaming arrangement means that you do have a subcontractor, but you have signed an agreement, a teaming agreement with them based on FAR 52-207-6 and FAR 52-2012-1. That the teaming agreement contains those clauses and everything in it. You have signed them and you have submitted that to the government. That is a teaming agreement, and that cannot include a large business. But you can have a subcontractor, being a small or large, doesn't matter, when you are actually executing a specific task order. So when you are awarded this PACTS III and then you want to execute a task order, you can always bring in subcontractors, and those subcontractors can be both small or large. These would be considered different from your teaming arrangement. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that. And then if you're forming those teaming arrangements, because you have to submit the agreement, the teaming agreement with your proposal, make sure that the information that is required by FAR 52-207-6 is in there, and it also includes what's in the addendum to FAR 52-212-1. So all of those should be in the agreement. So these are the important points on partnering. In terms of how this experience and scoring works, in terms of experience, you can use JV members, and then prime sub team partners experience. But if it's an MPJV or prime sub relationship, 40% of the project must come from the protege or the prime. So 40% of the project must come from the prime or the protege. So if you are the prime and you have 3 contracts only, then 4 contracts only, then you can only bring 6 more contracts from your subs, because that would be 10, 40% of that would be 4. So if you have 4 contracts, you can only bring in 6 contracts from your subs. Not 7, not 8, just 6. That's the maximum. So that's something to consider. In terms of the adequate accounting system, now the adequate accounting system, there are 2 ways of getting that. Unfortunately, it's not written here, but one is obviously from the government itself, from DCAA or DCMA, if they have actually reviewed your accounting system and approved it. That's acceptable. That's considered adequate. Another difference with Oasis Plus is that they have added something else in the here in PACTS III. If a third company, independent company, independent CPA has approved your accounting system based on government requirements, and there are companies, there are CPAs that do that. They go through your accounting system based on government's requirements and then approve it. If you do have that approval, that counts as adequate as well. So this is different from Oasis Plus, because in Oasis Plus they did not accept any third-party reviews or anything like that. But here it's acceptable. So if you can get that in say next 2-3 months, you don't have it, by all means go after it. Facility clearance. Okay, so in terms of facility clearance, if you're the prime, if you're in a prime sub relationship, the prime must have that facility clearance. You cannot use one of your partners' facility clearance. You can't claim that. But if you're in a JV, then the facility clearance can be in the name of the JV itself or any members of the JV. Same stands for the mentor protege. So if it's in the name of the mentor protege JV itself, or in the name of protege, or in the name of mentor, that's fine. It's acceptable. But for prime sub relationship, it must come from the prime. If you have a JV, I forgot to mention on the adequate accounting system. If you have a JV, but one of the members has the adequate accounting system, if that member is the one that is billing the government, that's fine. So you have to say that in that agreement, for in the JV agreement, that the billing will be done by that company that does have the adequate accounting system. Then that's acceptable in terms of JVs. Okay, and once that's done, then you can see how this, the split between these different partnerings, the SBTA as they call it, JVs, mentor proteges, and prime subs work. Essentially, two companies can get awarded under each of these once they work together and get their chances higher. Okay, so moving forward, let's look at some of these compliance issues, which are very important, and we have run out of time. I'm trying to go faster. So let's look at some of the compliance issues. I always show this slide because this shows a lot. This is about GSA HCATS, another opportunity, but it was self-scoring. You can see that the orange numbers are the number of submissions that were eliminated due to being non-compliant. So you see for small businesses, it's a little bit less than 75%. 66 of the submissions were actually eliminated because they were not compliant. For large businesses, the same, nearly 50%. So compliance is really important, and many times I've seen companies not get awarded because of this compliance issues. So what do you do to prevent? Read the RFP and all its Q&As thoroughly multiple times. Create a reliable compliance checklist. It's really important to have a checklist there. Do at least 2 rounds of compliance checks when you're finished with the scoring. Attention to details, especially the L&M, and go through that multiple times. Discuss compliance with your team. Be a devil's advocate. Don't rely on yourself. Always do it with multiple people. Always assume that you've missed something. Always review how you can increase your score. You want to be the top 2 offers. And then utilize the third party to review your scoring and your proposal documents, to have another set of eyes, check your work. Even if it's within your department, your company, that's fine. What I meant is that, somebody who was not participating in everything that you did, so it's a new set of eyes and can check your work. Now, what can go wrong? Compliance, misunderstanding the requirements, not maximizing your score, not substantiating your score properly. Substantiation is important. I'll mention it briefly. Stretching the score too far, which usually turns into disqualification, and then not submitting the proposal correctly. Here, it's not the Symphony portal that GSA has. DHS has uses the PIEE system for submitting, so you have to use that system, PIEE, to submit correctly on all the documents that are required. Now, if you're doing the substantiation meaning providing the documents to prove that what you have claimed, those score that you have claimed, is correct. Make sure that the following are available, highlighted, and annotated on each contract: project title, project contract number, total obligated value, relevance, period of performance, offer's name, past performance. Include all contract documents and modifications, and not just the most recent modification. So they've said that not only the main contract document, but all the modifications must be submitted. Additionally, must include either the most recent FPDS printout for federal contracts, obviously, or project verification form for all the non-federal contracts. And even if your federal contract doesn't have the correct FPDS or something like that, you have to have that project verification form for each contract. And then remember that all documents must be provided in their entirety. So don't just pick the first page of your award document. The entire award document must be submitted. Workload split, essentially 50%. This is per experience that we have gained. Essentially 50% of the time, time spent and the energy and everything goes into the contract selection and partnering, and the process of actually picking the best contracts, making sure they're correct within the past 2 years, correct volume, correct value and everything. Then the proposal preparation is 25%, compliance reviews 20%, preparation of the submission 5%. This is per our experience in terms of the workload. How we can help you quickly on that. We have free consultation. We can provide a full proposal development, so score assessment optimization, full proposal assembly, multiple compliance checks, and then submission. We can do a go no go once the score assessment optimization is done to make sure that you do have a good chance or not, so we don't continue on to the full proposal assembly and so on, and not waste your money if you don't have a good chance. And then we can do reviewing and auditing. In case you've done it in-house, we can always, once your proposal is prepared, we can actually do 2 rounds of compliance checks, score optimization checks, and submission preparation. So these are the services that we provide. I've put in my contact information as well as my colleagues, Maron Freedy for sales. So if you need to set up those free consultations, please contact Maron. If you have any technical questions, please contact me, and we'll be glad to help you. With that, we have gone past our time. We have come up with the Q&As. Let me read 1 or 2, and then I'll try to answer the rest by email. Okay, so let me go through a few of them very quickly. We are past our time. I apologize for that. Let me read, say, 2 or 3. First question, you said that they're going to pick 2 companies, but in another slide, you said that they will pick 8 companies for each FC. Please explain. Okay, so yes, for each FC, under each subcategory, each set aside, they're going to pick 8 companies. So, but those 8 companies will be split again into 4 different categories. 2 of them will go to solo offerers only. 2 of them will go to JVs only. 2 of them will go to mentor protege JVs, and 2 of them will go to prime sub offerers. So a total of 8, but in 4 different categories. That's why if you're, it doesn't matter which category you are, you will only have 2. You have to compete for 2 places, not 8 places, 2 places, because you're either a solo or you're either a JV or the other 2. I hope I have answered it. Next question. My company doesn't have an FCL. Can we still participate? Yes, by all means. You don't have to have an FCL. You don't have to have an adequate accounting system. As long as you get the score that is higher than the others, you can actually, win on this. So that's not a, mandatory requirement. Next question, and this will be the last. We have 5 contracts above 1 million obligated, but they are ongoing. Will end in 2 years. Can we use them? Yes, but remember that they must have 6 months of performance. So you must have at least 6 months of performance on them, even if they're ongoing. And do remember that that $1 million must be obligated, not in the future right now. So that's something to consider also. With that, I will finish. We are already past our time. I want to thank everyone and apologize for the length of the webinar. By all means, send your questions on the chat system. I'll go through them and I will answer each and every one of them by email. Thank you again for your participation and have a great day.